each businesses. So, feel free to ask specific questions as we go along. And then I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to try to increase so I see everybody. Perfect. So basically, a couple of insights about round A. So C to round A from a Boston, US perspective and European perspective as well, but I think it applies pretty much to the rest of the world. So Beatrice did my introduction, indeed worked from different companies. Today, I'm the founder of Innovo, also the member of Innovo Capital Network. So it's a group of business angels and investors. I have my friend Nick Anderson, who you can see in the middle of the screen or somewhere on the screen, who's part of the network as well. So we work together to help actually companies from the seed to round A stage. And we founded out of the venture studio, which is Innovo, also a company called AI Lean, ground up, raised funded. And so we're sort of going to explain a little bit how we did all of this. So Boston, you probably heard it from all the speakers, is really a unique city. It's amazing. We have 90 VC firms managing collectively $90 billion under management. Half of it is pretty much real estate. The rest is biotech, medtech, and also digital health. We have roughly 400 exits each year. So 4,000 startups. It's also the hub for headquarters like Moderna, the vaccine, HubSpot, Drift, Drizzly, Row.co, all unicorn companies. So we've been able to take some of this knowledge and hopefully we're going to share some of it with you. Again, feel free. Any questions? If I speak too fast, just let me know also. So we've helped over 40 companies in the last 2 years, raised multi-million-dollar funding. I'm going to skip this, but we've done it. We think to build a startup, number one, that's why it's great to see you all here today. It takes a village to build a startup, and startup bring prosperity. So it takes an entire ecosystem. It takes great organization like Mass Chile. It takes, your local incubator, your government, your investors, and so on. So it takes a whole crowd of people and network all around the world to take you to the round A. It's not going to be a journey that you're going to be able to do alone. So we have a system at Innovo. I'm not there to sell you any service here, but you really need to look, and that's maybe more for the incubators or accelerators like Mass Chile. Think about it as a system, right? You want to connect the startups with experts, with investors, and sort of have a ladder to climb, up. So, and to avoid the death valley. So seed to round A, the death valley, which we are all in. When you're a startup pre-round A, there's a lot of failure. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things, and first a couple of questions. So how many VC deals do you think there is each year globally? Anyone wants to take a shot at this? How many VC deals every year, venture capital deals? Globally, we have 7 billion people on the planet. How many deals happen every year? All rounds together. So I'm seeing here some chats. Okay, so Thomas, yep. So Thomas would be close. So it's 11,000. 11,000 deals every year. So, in the big scheme of things, it's not a lot. And half of it happens basically in the US. So if you're not in the US, already 50% of the deals, are gone. So it's really reserved to, I would say the elites. And when I say the elites, it doesn't mean what country, it means the level of entrepreneur. So to be able to raise funds in the US, you really, on everywhere around the world, to fit into the probabilities, you really need to step the game up. So what percentage of companies are failing in early stages? Any idea here? Thanks. It's great that everyone is participating. Thank you for that. 85%, 90%, 70%, 25%. Indeed, so it's roughly 90%, but it's going to depend on the ecosystem as well, right? If you're in the Silicon Valley, if you're in the middle, a village in the middle of nowhere where there's no resources, where you don't have that village, you don't have these investors, you don't have the corporate or the government helping you, your chances of failure will be way higher. final question. So what do you think are the most common pitfalls that startup, miss, and what are the most common pitfalls that makes most startup fail? What is the biggest reason for startup failure? Anyone has a idea? Yes, so perfect. So it's exactly right. It's great. Not every cohort, not every group, recognize this right away. So good job, Chile, good preparation here. Indeed, it's all about the sales, the market fit, solving a problem, having a good team, and so on. So we're moving a little bit here. How many percentage of pitch decks that are reviewed by VC? So all of you will be raising funds, or many of you will be raising funds. On 100%, how many deals that they review get funded, would you say? Roughly 5% is 2% actually, but it's really low. So again, it's super tough to get funded, but there's a trick and there's some techniques to get funded. I'm going to share with you some of these things. So first of all, pitching, sorry, it's going a little quick here. Pitching is like a sales process, basically. So you're selling your company. When you have your product, it's for your clients. When you're raising funds, you're selling your company as the product. So like a sales process, utilize a CRM, have a lead list, qualify them, exactly like whatever you apply to your sales process, apply it to your funding process. You have to pitch and you have to convert and so on and so on. So it's like a sales process. And today, especially in the age of digital, try to automate the whole process because it's going to take you so much time to raise funding. We see entrepreneurs pitch to us and to many other VCs, all the time. You end up pitching all the time and you don't have time. So record a little 1-minute video. That would be an advice we gave you. Do the executive summary that was talked about, I'm imagining, and record also your full pitch so you can minimize the number of time you have to pitch, right? You don't want to pitch to investors who are not interested in your company, just wanting to learn. So the key is also to qualify them really well in advance to make sure you're pitching to the right people. If so, it seems you have an executive summary, otherwise we can provide one. Beware also of one thing we see all the time with VCs is the bone fetch, right? So sometimes you think a VC wants to fund you and they're going to say, okay, we're interested, but it's always missing this one thing. And they do what is called a bone fetch, right? So you're all excited, you go, you come back, and then they have another thing, so learn to sort of see these things and to know, okay, this investor is not interested and we need to, change the VC. So remember one thing, revenue matters. At the end of the day, don't try to raise funding, raise revenue. Look for money. Money attracts money, especially in the US. COVID-19, so that is also something that has changed a lot of things. So all of you, I know myself, I know a lot of startups we work with, became expert in digital sales, right? So knowing how to sell in a digital world, having all the tools, being equipped, automating the process to sell, to get that revenue, to get that high growth that VCs are looking for is hypercritical. And you'd be amazed, and probably some of you know already, you can outsource a lot of sales reps. You can hire lead gen expert out of other countries who are super cheap and so on. So learn to generate revenue, become a master at digital sales. That is key. No matter if your business is a B2C or B2B, an investor will look how fast can you grow the business, right? It's not about the greatness of your product, because we're buying the company, right? We're not buying the product. So we want to know, how is the company performing? How fast is the growth in revenue? And is it profitable revenue? Because you can grow super fast your revenue if you sell really cheap, right? And you're not making a profit. So profitable revenue is the key as well. And why, maybe just why also digital revenue era? You want to reduce, I'm pretty sure during the program you guys talked about this, the customer acquisition cost, and maximize your customer lifetime value, right? So that's the two key KPIs that we're going to be looking at for VCs. So then what is your stage? So here, what is everyone's stage? So here, this is a matrix that we use. We use basically the karate belt colors to say, what is the stage of the company? So you see here, white belt, yellow belt, green belt, blue belt, that's the C to round A. So most of you are somewhere in that these colors. And then you have the round A plus. So that will be red, black, junior black and black. So here you see revenue. So I think it's hidden on the share screen, but the first line is revenue. So this gives you an idea of when you're ready for round A. So in the US, and again, it's a guideline, it's going to depend from VCs to VCs, but in a nutshell, if you're 2 to 5 million in revenue, then you're sort of a scale-up phase, and then you're in the round A plus. But then there's small round A's, big round A's. So, know where you are, where you fit, because it's going to determine who is the right VC for you. Maybe you're not even ready for VC. Maybe your investor will be more business angels, or the government, or family and friends, or revenue, right? Always prefer anyway revenue as the funding. It's because it's cheaper for you. So also ask yourself, is Boston and the US right for you? Right, and that question would be to any country. Is basically, are you filling a market gap, a market void in the US, right? Is there something that you're bringing to the US that is missing? So if not, maybe you're more of a foreign great investment. So VCs, it's either way, right? So VCs, so maybe a little touching on one little thing about, are you filling a void in the US? So since the beginning of time, we've been importing and traveling around the world, exploring, other regions of the world to bring products that don't exist in another country, right? And if you go back to the time of the Silk Road and Marco Polo and so on, they would cross these lands of danger, sort of Death Valley, where you would have thieves, stealing all your stuff. You would only go for big reward, right? So you would only bring with you the highest value things that do not exist on the other side, right? So ask yourself that too. What is it you're taking with you, right? Why are you doing the move? Why are you selling to the US? Are you selling something that's critical and missing? If that's the case, you're going to find, great success in the US. But that doesn't mean that if your product is only really good for Chile, that you can't find investors that invest in you, because there's a lot of potential in your business locally and in other countries. So and that's the key points here on the attractivity for foreign investment. So VCs in the US will see you as a foreign company. And I have this experience with the French companies as an example. And I ask, okay, why do you invest in foreign companies and not in the US companies? So the pros, they will find that, in the US, there's high valuation. So you guys, typically, it's not always the rule, but, you will have a lower valuation because venture capital is more scarce in your region. So because there's less capital, so offer and demand, right? Basically, the price of your company, the less competition of people trying to buy a stake in your company means basically that, you have less leverage to sell your company for very expensive compared to Boston. You're a kid out of a university, you just have an idea in your head, you don't even have a pitch deck, and you already have 5 investors wanting to give you, 2 million. So that is why investors are interested to go to other regions, is because they can invest in and get a good deal. There's less investors, better deal, more equity, and it's also the market dynamics, which might be different. So the why they do not invest in foreign companies, and it's going to depend, again, you have to look at which investors invest in foreign companies, right? You can't go to guys who only invest in the US. So maybe there's a different culture, different understanding of business, it's distant, they can't control you, right? They can't visit you for the board meeting, even though that's changing a little bit also with, everything digital. And it's also the synergies from a specific ecosystem like Boston. And it's also the ecosystem maturity and capital understanding. So some countries will not have the same understanding of how you make capital work and deliver an ROI. So on the next, which investors are right for you? So you have many ways. So money, there's a lot of money everywhere. That's the good news. And money is actually stuck up there. You know, we have all these big companies generating a lot of profit, specifically the technology digital companies, and it's sort of stuck up there. And it's a problem. But there's a lot of money, a lot of venture capital. So if you're looking for money and you have the right product that's solving a key problem, you will find that money. And here are the different sources. You have friends, families, and fools. Probably heard about this one already. So try to avoid it, because if your company doesn't make it, you may lose some friends. You have the government, which typically will invest very early stage. You have the small business angels, which will basically put between 10K, 20K, and a total of 100K. So these guys are good because typically they screen you, because they're putting a small amount. They're going to do a good job on due diligence. And then this can be a good trigger to go to high network individuals, big tickets investors. Then you go to family offices, small round VC, big VC, private equity, bank, IPO. So what we've been seeing all along is basically the rounds are a mixture of all of that, right? So you have to sort of crowd fund, you know, do a road show and pitch 100 times. And that's why also I'm saying, you know, record your pitch, try to automate it. So you don't have to basically, you know, spend too much time. You want to spend time in front of your customers selling your products so you can generate traction and revenue and minimize the amount of non-value added time. And just pitching to the wrong investors is basically also, you know, non-value added. And remember, to raise funds, you need traction and revenue. So, you know, focus on that. Question 4, how do investors see you? So what type of company are you, right? Are you a zombie company that should be killed or pivoted? So you're never going to make money, you're never going to make a profit, you know, you have the wrong team. So, and you're just funded by the government forever, right? So is that something, you know, is that your case, or are you a cockroach company? That's really the terms, you know, that I used. Cockroach is not necessarily a bad company. Cockroach will be those slow growth, low profit, but profitable. They live long, and they typically interest more private equity, right? Because, we call them the cockroach because it's not sexy, right? But it lives a long time, and, you know, private equity loves that because you get dividends on a long time. And then you have the unicorns, and there's a huge spectrum in the unicorns, but that's going to be high growth, high profit, highly differentiated, and very innovative product. So that comes back to what I was saying, you know, with when you come to the US, are you solving a problem that isn't solved already? You know, I know in Chile, there's a company that I think does milk, vegetarian milk, and it's a unicorn. So, you know, in the US, we have Impossible Burger. So it's a burger that is vegetarian, delicious. Maybe the milk is a big opportunity, you know, for the US, and maybe it's already here, I don't know. But, you know, it seems a very interesting company. So I can understand, you know, the problem they're fixing and why they value that high. So then next question is, what's your valuation potential? And we're not going to discuss in detail, you know, how to value your company and so on, but sometimes entrepreneurs, they come up with an idea and they think it's a great idea, but they don't know they're already a little bit doomed, because depending on where your idea is and where you start, your multiple might be different, right? You might have a low multiple and it's going to last for a long time, and you don't know it. So here, for example, if I give you an example, medical device startups, and it's sort of changing because now medtech startups are connected to digital. So, you know, you sort of mix the multiple, but a pure medtech manufacturing, a lot of cost of goods sold, needing to go to the FDA, a lot of risk, low profit, you know, maybe a lot of competition. It's a 4x multiple. So versus you go to internet retail, e-commerce, 42. So this graph is already, you know, a few years old. It's, I think, 2016. So you have to look at what's your recent, you know, valuation, you know, level that you have. So think about that. You know, you can send me an email or send an email to the team of ChileMass. We can look, give you a quick, you know, are you in the hot spectrum or not hot spectrum? So that's an important one. And then it's how much is your company worth? So there's a different methodologies. We're not going to cover them. Take a picture. But then at the end of the day, you know, in the seed to round A, it's a magic recipe. And it's mostly going to be about the vision and the early traction and the revenue. The more you can show, have revenue, have traction. So my customers are validating that what I'm saying is true. And you have a vision of growth, that's going to increase your valuation. Think about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. He started with books, but in the vision right away, there was, we're going to do everything, but we're going to start with books. Then we're going to add this, and then we're going to add that. So there was this vision, long-term vision. The more you have a long-term vision, the more your valuation is going to go high if you have proof that this long-term vision is possible. So customers, letter of intent, revenue, profitable revenue, and so on is going to be the key. What's your company value? Where to find business angels in Boston? So I'm trying to be practical, not just theory. So how you find business angels? So bostoninnovationguide.com will give you the list of every business angel groups, every VC firms, every accelerator, every people you need to know in Boston to get access to them. So this is a really good website. We're listed on there as well. You have LinkedIn, of course. Everyone knows that, you know, Sales Navigator, perfect. You know, build a list in Sales Navigator and just hit them one by one after you've reviewed the website. Make sure that they have the thesis of investment to invest in you, and then go on Crunchbase. Crunchbase is also look at companies similar to you. And if they've already raised 20 million in Silicon Valley, look at who it is, go to the competitor of that VC and just do the same pitch and get the funding like that. So if there's already people investing in companies similar to yours, that's a good thing. So then raising money from business angels. So I'm guessing everyone knows what a business angel is. I'm not going to necessarily spend too much time there, but remember they're people, right? It's a business angel is not just a check. So one secret is to actually make sure you treat them like people, meaning understand their needs, understand their core values. Sometimes I'm going to give you a very simple example. If you're working on a device, medical device or whatever device for heart attack patients, and the business angel had this issue, or someone in his family, he's going to be more inclined to invest in your company as well. So you know, try to connect with humans that believe in your product, can see the need. Try to find sophisticated business angels. Make sure you know they're good humans, low ego. They believe in your idea. You know, they did the due diligence, and they're not scared about losing their money. Right? You don't want a business angel who gives you $10,000 and call you every day. Right? So make sure you're not taking someone who's giving you all his savings for his retirement, and it's going to be more of a stress and a problem for you than a help. So then next slide. So big ticket investors. So we love them for one simple reason. Well, A, they have big tickets that they can put in your company, but typically big ticket investors also come with high sophistications. These are C-level executive working at companies, and typically they're very busy. So you can't get them, you know, on your own, or you will get them with, you know, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and so on. But think senior executive, VPs, sitting on boards of companies. They also invest heavily in startup these days. So if you have a good company, try to find that perfect human that basically love your idea or can love your idea. Maybe it's an agri-tech startup and the person is on the board of a large company in the agri-tech. That's your perfect business angel for that. Beware. So business angels are not always angels. So basically, there's the newbies, right? So they don't know what they're doing, and they're doing it for the first time, and then that's the guys who are going to be, you know, scared and calling you all the time when, you know, to figure out where the $10,000 went, or they will bring low value to you, and they will not understand what you're doing. They're going to take a lot of your equity. So some have a Machiavellic plan, right? They know you're going to need more money later on. So they give you a little bit of money. They could give you more right away, but they don't. And then they just starve you, you know, and then you need the next round, and you need the next round, and you need the next round, and they just cripple and eat your company away. So that's something to be careful. Some investors will just invest in you because it's good for political reason. It's some branding, you know, you're a green tech company and it looks good to put $10,000 in a green tech company, or philanthropic, you know, you're giving away money because they want to tell, you know, the government they're doing this and that, or politics. So, you know, to really try to understand what are the motives of that investor or business angel. Qualify them like a sales process, right? You don't be desperate. Don't go to business angel, you know, begging for money. You're in charge of your business, of your destiny. You have a vision, you know where you're going. So you're basically qualifying who you want to work with you. Look at the track record, interview them, ask them, what's your track record? What are the company names you've been invested in? What's your X multiples, right? Did you ever have a success in investing in a company? You know, what's your investment thesis? Are you investing in foreign companies? Are you investing in agri-tech, in health tech? Give me the names, show me. Proofs, ask for proof, right? It's like a resume, like onboarding a business angel is exactly like hiring an employee. Have a dinner, drinks, you know, check their purpose, the values and the mentor abilities and so on, and references. Don't hesitate to give a phone call to basically another company that got funded by this investor. So hopefully this is helpful so far. Feel free to put questions, comments, and if I speak too fast, you know, let me know as well. So remember, business angels see you and see your competitions. They have choices. So the investors we work with, they're humans, like all of us, and they have a choice. Once an investor told me, you know, Alistair, I have a choice. Instead of putting 100K in that startup, I can buy myself a yacht. It's going to be a waste of money, but I have the money, so I can, and I can go on a wonderful vacation, you know, in the Caribbean for a month and spend that money and not have the hassle to deal with an entrepreneur. So for me to not put that money there and put that money on an entrepreneur, it needs to be also exciting. And he doesn't want to lose his money. There needs to be an incentive, right? Of why not do this and do that. So an investor will not want to work with a team, you know, where it's going to be hard to work with. They don't listen to feedback. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be a pain. You know, they also want to have somewhat of a good time and a good relationship because they're going to spend time with you. They can also invest in other companies that you see here. You know, that's the, you know, CV Insight showing, you know, there's other companies just like you. So they're going to compare, okay, what's your multiple potential, right? What valuation are you proposing and how much money they can make? They can buy real estate. They can buy, you know, today you buy Dogecoin and Bitcoin, right? Hopefully some of you bought some recently on some Dogecoin. It went pretty high. Or go on vacation and so on, or place the money in Goldman Sachs, right? Once I went to an investor when I was still a newbie and I pitched, okay, this startup is great. You know, you're going to make so much X multiple. This is fantastic. And the person told me, I get the same from Goldman Sachs without even having to worry about it. So you have to be also above the traditional financial instruments, right? So you can't go to an investor, invest in my company, and you're going to make, you know, 3% year over year, right? It has to be something that's competitive. So, and then they can just give them money away to charity and reduce their taxes. So that also you have to understand, you know, for a business angel, sometimes the motives also is to reduce the taxes. The government, they do incentives so that they can reduce the taxes. So they get even more equity without even putting all the money, right? So you can also negotiate knowing that. So then, where to find VCs? So we talked about business angels. Now you're looking for round A plus VCs. So I think, you know, given the stage I've heard, you know, you will want to, you know, go for business angels first, and then business angels who can take you to VCs. So Bust, you know, every month they share what is called a roundups, and they list every VC round that happened in Boston. That can give you the type of startups they invest in. That can give you also the list of the VCs that invest, that are active, because there's a lot of VCs that are not active, or investors in general that are not active. This will show you who is active versus not. And then there's also taking a membership, maybe more for Mass Chile, if it's not already done. We're members, it's fantastic. It's the New England Venture Capital Association. 90 VC firm managing collectively $90 billion and investing roughly these 3.5 billion just in January, right? That's 1 month in Boston, right? If you compare to many countries, that's, you know, what happens in a year, you know, and that happens on a monthly basis in Boston. But then there is a lot of biotech, which eats for a lot of that half, roughly, and it's very capital intensive. But in, I think it was in February or March, where software, for the first time in a long, long time, or ever even, I think, was higher than biotech. And then it came back to normal the months after. But still, there's a trend on software. If you have a software, it's a hot market right now. Then you have government. So a lot of people sometimes, you know, they hesitate with, you know, government funding. So I think government funding is great. You know, you just have to know what it is for and what it's not for. So typically government funding, and it's not a general rule, I don't know how it is in Chile, but, you know, you would say that VCs and business angels, depending on the business angels and the VCs, will be smart money. And basically government money would be more numb money. So it comes without necessarily the, you know, insights, the networks, and so on, but it's not always the case, again. But then this is really good for everything to do with early stage R&D, and you have in the US, but, you know, this is an example for the US. I don't think it applies for the most part to you guys, but then be aware in your ecosystem of every funding source that exists from the government, because the government needs you to create jobs, right? So that's their ROI. They're not looking to make a ROI on your equity. They're looking to make a ROI on the economy, right? Creating jobs, people who pay taxes, right? And that's how they get the money back. So they give you money so you can do that. So, and it's available, it's there. If you search, you find, right? The embassies, they have export grants. You know, the accelerators have grants, corporates have grants. So, you know, as a CEO of a company, we're always looking for money, right? Clients, revenue, government, business angels, VC, even though you want to avoid the VCs and the business angel because they take equity. So prefer non-dilutive in general than dilutive. So what is the best way to raise capital is not to raise capital, raise your revenue. If you raise your revenue, you show growth, it's investors will be pitching to you, right? And that's what you want. You don't want to be pitching to investors, you want investors to be pitching to you. And you want to be able to qualify them. You want to have a list in front of you. So focus on your revenue, high traction, profitable business model. And what's great today with digital, you can generate a lot of leads, a lot of revenue in a very short amount of time if you know how to use the tools, right? There's a lot of different ways, and you can hire some cool kids who can, you know, growth hackers who can do like amazing things. So the metrics that matters in the US particularly, it's all about the money. Money will attract money. And it's not because, you know, there's a specific love for money. Is money tells the truth. You can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, when you print the P&L and you print the balance sheet, that never lies, right? It tells the truth. Oh, your customers love you. How much revenue did you make, right? Oh, your customers love you a lot. How much profit did you make? So it never lies. So some few ones that are really important for you to know: customer acquisition costs, customer lifetime value. If you can't be profitable on these two, you already have a big problem. You're that zombie company, right? So what's your customer lifetime value, right? When a customer buys you your product, how much revenue do you do on the lifetime of the customer? Not one shot, 3 years or 4 years of customer. How do you upsell them? Right? So you start with, you know, think Starbucks, right? Starbucks, why would Starbucks sell 20 million or spend $20 million of ads for the Super Bowl? Well, because once someone goes buy a Starbucks coffee, one at $5, they're going to buy it for the next 5 years every day. That's a lot of money for one customer. Now you multiply this one customer, multiply by millions of people, you have a lot of money coming in. So thinking in terms of CLTV, customer lifetime value, is the key. Don't just think in terms of price per product. CLTV per customer. Then also, what's your total addressable market? You probably covered this, the serviceable addressable market, and your total target market, right? How big is your market? And also, don't go too wide right away. Focus on even your city, right? Penetrate 100% your city. Create a monopoly wherever you are. If you can prove that you can be successful in that city, then you can be successful in the next city. Because what you want to be developing is that model, that lead gen model, that revenue model, that profit model in one neighborhood even. And once you have the recipe, you copy, you paste, and you put it on other places. Like Road.co, that's a company we talk about all the time. They help people stop smoking. They started in New York. Now they're a telemedicine company for everybody in the US. It's the biggest unicorn. But they started very focused and they developed that business model, those KPIs at a very micro level. Once you have that, VCs will pour money on you so that the model can replicate and scale. So what nerds don't get, it takes hard work to make sales look easy. That's Peter Thiel, probably all of you, most of you, some of you know. He's the founder of PayPal and so on, and a billionaire in the US, a venture capitalist. And his book, he has a book, but in general, whenever you hear him talk, he's really big on sales. So this is just to illustrate the mindset of VCs. It's about you growing your revenue, right? Your revenue and your profit. And don't get confused when you hear Uber is not profitable. They're not profitable because they're investing in growth, right? So it's okay to be not profitable when you invest in growth. And when you remove the growth investment, then you realize that they're very profitable, right? It's the cost for expansion. So use the force. So what's the force? Everything is about balance, and it's more than just business. So the yin and the yang, simple thing that many of us know. It's the clear piece, the white piece, and that's yellow, but normally it's white. It's the good. The black is the bad, right? And in bad there's good, and in good there's bad. And why this is the force? Because it creates balance, right? You can't see everything just as good or everything just as bad. You bring both together. So if in your pitch you use good, right? I want to change the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. But on the other hand, also you use, greed, you're going to see that you're going to have a lot of success. Talk about money, ROI. People want to make money. All of us around this webinar, everyone around the world needs money and wants to make money, right? So this is a thing that never lies. So if you use both, it's a good balance. You don't want to just be the hippie, want to change the world. We want to change the world, but we want to make money too. And what's funny, the definition of an entrepreneur, which is a French word, but in Latin, the Latin etymology, basically it's, venture capital. It's the same word. And venture capital is you venture out, right? You're curious, you venture out. Capital is about making the money, making an ROI. It's about that give and take. It's that win-win. So that is really the culture I've learned in the US, working in corporates, America, and with major executives in these firms. We look at business measured by success, measured by KPIs, by revenue, by profit, because it never lies. You don't want to look at things that will not tell you the truth, right? So look at your numbers. Then forget your technology and your solution too. As you're pitching, it's lead with your why. You probably have heard, Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Same thing with the investors, same thing with your customers. It's the why will be stronger and generate sales, generate profit, generate a strong brand, will augment the value of your company if you focus on your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why does it matter? Why is it important, right? This guy, Sridhar Iyengar, is a Boston founder. He sold his company, Misfit, for $260 million. And he says, what he learned from doing entrepreneurship on 10, 15 years, and after selling his company, he has 10 tips he's sharing, but one of them is read fairy tales, not business books. So again, it's about storytelling, right? Learn to tell stories, to explain simply the why, what you're doing is very critical. Think about Elon Musk, right? He's probably the rock star storyteller, right? So why do we need to have a Tesla? Right? Because it changes the world and it saves us all, and we're also going to, another planet, because in case there's a problem on this planet, and so on and so on. So all of us, we know that story, or we've heard about it, or some of us have heard about it. But stories, they stay, right? That's what people as humans, since the beginning of age, we tell stories that we can remember. We pass it to the neighbor. So stories will go like wildfire. So your pitch, your story, your business plan needs to be a story. And read more fairy tales, have a vision, imagine what can be from your business in 5 to 10 years. What's going to be the impact of your business if we don't do it? And what is going to be the impact of your business if you do it, right? Finally, couple more slide here before the questions. So connect yourself also more to the universe. So raising funds is not just about a pitch deck. It's not just about KPIs. You guys are changing the world, the real world, the universe in which we live in, right? So every rule of the universe applies to what you do. So Stephen Hawking said, look at the stars, not down at your feet, and you'll be more successful. And one of the reasoning here is even physics. I don't know if some of you are scientists, what's your background, but whatever your background is, these rules apply. Physics apply. It's not just MBA. There's a bit of, there's a bit of science in everything we do. Anthropology. If you have a friend who's an anthropologist, talk to him, right? It's because if you can study the universe, study humans, understand life, exactly how it works, it's going to give you that unfair advantage, and your business, your marketing, your sales is just going to explode because you're really connected to the real world, right? You're going to understand humans, you're going to understand problems, and so on and so on. So I give you an example of the rule of the universe that's very simple, that works all the time in sales or even in pitching to investors, is the rule of Newton. So it's inertia, acceleration, resistance, right? So you have your VC, he's not moving, status quo, doesn't want to invest. You're going to be accelerating on him, right? You're going to be pitching, trying to convince him, he's going to reject, and you're going to try to convince more. And so he's going to resist. It's a law of physics. Try to reverse it. Stop pitching to him, trying to convince him. Ask him question. What do you think about my business? Oh, but why do you think this? And you reverse the physics. So this is just a little example, but there's a lot of different things, if you study different things, basically, not just MBA stuff, not just, startup books, because you're going to find a lot of things that's going to equip you for success to raise funds. So to finish, 10 things investor look for. Investment thesis, number one. That's a recap slide. So look at the investment thesis. Are you solving a real unmet needs? Bigger vision. So have a vision. Don't just have a product, have a vision. Where is the company taking your community, the world, your customers in 10 years? What happens if we don't do it? It has to be important, right? If it's just nice to have, you may have a problem. Find customers that are willing and able to pay, right? It's one thing to be willing. Okay, I want to pay you, but I can't. I'm not the right customer. So find the magic recipe of that customer that's willing and able to pay the maximum price, right? That's like Amazon, Prime customers, right? These guys don't even look their bank account. The Prime customers, the money comes out of the bank on a monthly basis, and they're happy. They're okay with it because they have the money to be able to pay. Your product is highly desirable and rare. So rare. And sometimes, it's about marketing to make it rare, right? To make it highly differentiated, right? It's a story. A brand can just make your product unique. Tangible proofs. So you have customers, you have traction, rapid execution and growth. That's something we see, we saw a VC once pass on a deal. The product was great. The idea was great. The team was okay. But then the guy said, yeah, I think these guys have a huge idea, but how come it takes them 8 years to do that, right? If I put money, it's not going to change the speed. If they haven't been able to do it up to now, they're not going to be able to do it tomorrow. So speed, cut the fluff, listen and evolve as humans. So you're able to listen, take feedback, and not be humble, if you will. Then finally, make them money. That's the name of the game. These guys are buying your company, not your product. And the investment of 10,000 or 100,000 needs to become $1 million in 2 or 3 or 5 years. And then you're convincing with a sound story that is exciting. So typical rounds that we saw recently, to give you the DNA of the round. So it's 4 million broken down with 250K is friends, family, 750K of business angels, the small tickets and the large ticket, 2.5 million small VC, 500K loan, 50K export grant, and so on. So that concludes it. And then you have like another one here for seed stage, smaller ticket. So, that's where you see the government chime in, and you have a little less of business angel, but it's a good mix to try to get maximum from government and have the business angels. And typically the business angels will take you to the VCs, and so try to find also business angels like Nick Anderson, for instance, who's with us, I think still. I don't see him, but basically that can take you to large VC firms. So that's for the presentation. Thank you, everybody. Very happy to be here. We are now open for questions.
I am here, Alistair. Great presentation.
Hello, Nick. Thank you. Thank you. So any questions, anyone? Any comments?
Thank you, Alistair. Really, really interesting presentation. Amazing, I have to say. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have a question, Thomas.
Hi, Alistair. Thanks for the presentation. It was very good, very eye-opening. And you mentioned something that there was a VC round with 3.5 billion in a month in Boston, if I recall it well. And you said something that most of it goes to biotech.
Yes.
So my question is, we are an IT company. We specialize in simulations, and one of our main products or technologies is VR. Do you have a percentage in mind of where does VR fits here in the huge VC pool?
Absolutely. So it was 3.5 billion every month.
Yeah.
And it's roughly 50% goes to biotech, meaning 50% goes to everything else. And so indeed, enterprise software is big. Augmented reality is going to depend. What field are you in? Is it what application?
We do VR, AR, web-based simulators.
This is a hot market in Boston. We have Visarius Surgical. They just became a unicorn. They did an IPO, $1 billion. So indeed, it's a hot spot here. You just, again, you need to find the investors that invest in AR, VR. I have someone to introduce you to, actually, Hakan from XR Terra, and he's very much connected in Boston to the entire XR VR network. You would also have Boston or Jeff Bale. So I can work with Fernanda and the team to connect you to a couple of the AR VR people, yeah. And we also have Bernard Kress, who's a AR VR guy at HoloLens. He's the guy doing the HoloLens. And so I don't know if you guys are using the HoloLens, but
we just bought one. We just bought one.
Okay, perfect. So Bernard Kress is the guy doing the HoloLens. He's a good friend of mine. And so, we can definitely connect you guys. AR, VR is hot, depending on the application, also. Again, if you solve an unmet need, there's no problem. Like it's about the unmet need.
Great. Thanks.
Perfect. Any more questions, please? We love questions, so.
Also, if you are not comfortable with your English, you can type it in the chat and we can ask it for you. So don't be shy or miss out on this great opportunity to have someone like Alistair help you out. Dale.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, great presentation, by the way. I really like it. I have a question about what is the most common setup for when startups raise capital? What happens with the controls and the decisions that founders can make after raising capital? How much control do you see that is common to have from the investors?
Yeah, very good question. So I think it's really going to depend. So if you're in the business angel round, so seed stage, you're going to keep a lot of your control, especially if you're a founder with a strong vision, you know where you're going, you know what you're doing. If that's the case, business angel will be okay to actually give you the control. So again, it's about leverage, right? So that's what I was saying, you know, it's like a sales process. You have to build leverage for you. Don't have just one VC or business angel in front of you. Otherwise they hold, quote unquote, the gun, right? And you have to sign whatever you have to sign. If you have leverage, that's what you want to focus on. Then you can negotiate, you know, to your advantage. So typically, you know, you can have control, but minority equity. You can have a lot of equity, but no control. It's going to really vary from company to company, and more importantly, building the leverage. It's all about leverage. So, you know, have 20 VCs, 20 business angels you can pick from. And that's what I was saying. It's like a sales process, right? If you just, you know, find one and you're good, well, you think you're good, but you don't have leverage. So, you know, have a lead gen person, generate a lot of visibility for you, participate in a lot of events of your industry, get seen by maximum of people, go in the press, so people read about you in the press. The press will give you investors, you know, because they're going to be like, okay, there's something interesting I want to know. And once you have a lot in front of them, you tell them your terms.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. As I see no other questions, I have another one. What do you think about bootstrapping? I saw the case of MailChimp, but I believe that is very strange case. Do you see another startup bootstrapping over there?
So you know, very good thing. So for me, and Nick, feel free also to chime in, but I would say for me, bootstrapping, yes, bootstrap all the time, meaning trying to generate revenue and profitable revenue. Only raise capital if you can to accelerate the growth. You know,
perfect.
so it's to accelerate the growth. Revenue should have a purpose. And the more is to accelerate the growth, the more you have leverage again. Because you're a founder who's coming with a company that's already growing and you just need more money to make it grow faster. So I would say, you know, always try to bootstrap initially your first customer and fund it as much as you can. And once you have the model, you add funding to hire more people to basically, you know, go further. And in which case also, you don't necessarily need just VC. You can go to banks, because if you're profitable, and you can show a business case that's viable, you know, the banks may loan you as well, depending on the business. Yep.
I agree with what Alistair said. It's funny, I just gave a talk in Boston about, despite this background, over Zoom, and I'm in California right now. But the bootstrapping, if you can, absolutely do it, right? Because, you know, you're giving away, you're selling your baby, you're selling your company. And the more you sell, the less control you'll have. So, you know, it behooves you to try to grow. Look, being an entrepreneur means using resources you don't have to further your goals, right? And so you don't necessarily have the capital. How can you figure out how to work without the capital? What can you do differently? What can you do to grow quickly? Now, there are some companies, say, you know, the classic example would be a Facebook type company, or in the last, you know, year, a Clubhouse type company, where you're trying the idea, it's a consumer product company where, I mean, technological product, but it's a product for consumers, where you're trying to move so rapidly that no one else can occupy that niche. No one else can be, you know, you'll win. So Facebook beat what was it, MySpace, right? So, but that's, you know, that's probably not, well, there might be somebody here on this call who is like that. I don't know, obviously, but if you're not trying to do that incredibly rapid growth, that you're addressing a, you know, a tens of billion-dollar market, then, you know, you should think about, you know, trying to bootstrap as much as possible. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, this is Cesar. If I can have a minute.
Yes.
Hi, Alistair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have the following question, and hopefully I can explain myself correctly. On one hand, we have the leverage that you mentioned when you're trying to raise some capital, but you also have the valuation of the company. So how do you reconcile those two items? Because when we talk about valuation, it seems very factual if you have already some revenues, but then it seems that it blurs a little bit when it comes to the leverage. So is there a midpoint? How do you handle that?
No, exactly. And your company is a seed to round A?
Oh, no. You know, we're just getting started. We haven't I just funded myself, the company.
Yep.
But I'm just looking, you know, to what's going to happen in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it's really a magic recipe. You know, like there's no real formula we can give you like this. You know, it's going to depend. But the thing, leverage is having traction. So if you don't have revenue, have traction. So again, and a lot of traction. So if you have a product, try to get a list of 20, 30 customers that say, I'm interested, with, you know, 2-3 pre-orders signed. That gives you leverage, right? And then you can sort of base your valuation. We did this with the company. We said, okay, well, we signed 3 orders for future revenue, giving us 300K of annual recurring revenue, right? It's not yet signed, but
Correct.
the document that says they're gonna sign if the pilot is successful, that was the document we received. So basically, then we said, okay, well, 300K annual recurring revenue will be 500K at the end of the year. We do a multiple of, you know, we took 10 and then we put a discount on it because, you know, the guy already had some stock options. So we sort of, you know, figure it out. And then as long as the story makes sense. So at that point, C to round A, it's really a story. It's a magic recipe. You know, we had, just to illustrate this a bit more, we had an investor, very sophisticated, but who's used to invest later down the line. So he said, I want a bank. I need a banker to review the valuation of a very early stage company. And I was like, yeah, no banker is going to be able to do this. And then, but I was like, maybe I'm wrong. So, okay. So we got the banker. You went on the phone with the banker, and the banker said exactly this. Yeah, at this stage, it's whatever you believe it's worth. So basically, you have to build a story to convince people that it's worth that amount. But still, a story without facts and proof will never work. So you substantiate it with contracts, customers. There's not more powerful than customers. Testimonial. Film your customers. Put them on the website, right? And have customers, you know, sign documents that say, yep, they're going to pay that amount when it's there. Have a backlog, right? We have another company, we're helping them raise funds. It's a rapid COVID test from Mexico. They have 130 million orders. No revenue, orders. And they have now the manufacturing being set up. So they can't produce the things, but hey, we have the manufacturing being set up. We have the $130 million, you know, orders, which probably half will fall through, you know, but it's still good, right? It still gives a good story. And it's a bit like climbing, right? Where they want to know they have a couple of, you know, good handles, basically.
Correct.
So,
and in that example that you're giving us, what is the return that VC was expecting, at least starting from what number?
That's right. So that's a very good question, actually. So what you also look at is how much money the guy is going to make. So you say, okay, you invest today. So let's say the first company was 300K or 500K annual recurring revenue. I think we gave something like, 10% of the company. That's right, actually. Yeah, 10% for 300K. So something like this. So we valued it at 3 million. And then we said, okay, next year, if we continue that growth and we can convert those contracts into revenue, next year we'll be hitting $1 million in revenue, and will be probably a 5 to 10x multiple. So the company is going to be worth, between 5 and 10 million. So basically right now you do this, tomorrow you do that. And so then he said, okay, well, that sounds good. It's bigger than Goldman Sachs, bigger than a real estate investment, faster, nearly better than Dogecoin, but you have to play all these elements. So that's why I'm saying it's like a magic recipe where you substantiate it with revenue and customers. That never lies. Again, revenue, orders, pre-orders. You can say as much as you want. Okay, my company's great. Your customers need to say it, and they need to sign contracts, NDAs, pre-orders, and you need to show the backlog, and they'll call them. So that's also one thing we've learned. When I started this whole thing, I thought, due diligence was this, super complicated thing. Most VCs I talked to, and Nick, feel free to chime in there. I said, what's the one thing you do? And I said, we call the customer. We call the expert, right? If you're selling something for a surgeon, they're going to listen to your pitch. Just after you finish the pitch, they call the surgeon. Hey, this guy is telling me that, this is good. Would you use it? Mm-hmm. How much will you pay for this? Do you guys have a budget? Who needs to decide for this? Okay. You think your colleague would buy it? Okay. So now you have a deal. Now he believes you. So now he believes you. You make up a forecast, right? And you can base your valuation based on the forecast. But then here's a way also to have the leverage. So you say, okay, my forecast is going to be $1 million, and I need so much money. So you can also get it in chunks. Right, and I kind of recommend getting it in chunks too, even though it's more pressure for the entrepreneur. It puts a good pressure, right? If you hit certain milestone, you basically get the funding. And then if you give too much equity away, one way also to get the equity back in a way that satisfies the investor is getting stock option vesting. So you say, okay, here's your 10%. But I'm getting 15% of the total vesting as stock option. So basically, if I hit the objective that gives you your valuation, I'm getting a bit of equity back, and my team, right, the whole team. And investors, they love that because they know now, okay, you're incentivized to get back some equity that's going to be worth a lot of money. So then everyone is aligned. So it's also about looking at the human dynamics between the team, right? And that's why the negotiation is about, think more about what does it do for the company and the vision, right? Don't think too much about you and the investor. If you can explain to investors, I want to structure the deal this way because it's the best deal possible for the company and we're going to make a lot of money because of that structuration, then everyone buys in because everyone wants one thing, make money with the deal. So, so it's also taking you out and any investor out. And if you explain it logically to everybody, then, typically it works out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat that first congratulates you on the presentation and then asks, if a startup in healthcare wants to raise a seed investment for $5 million, what should your metrics be on average? Should it have traction in the USA? How many VCs should you meet?
Okay, so if I want to see somewhere, we should measure on the average, should be our traction in the USA, how many VC should we meet? Okay, good. So your seed stage, are you already FDA approved or not FDA approved? The question would be any clinic, so does it need clinical trial or no? The company? So let me answer like while we get the answer. Okay, so it's FDA approved and you did clinical trials?
She says in the chat box, Yes. Why don't you ask Beatrice the question and have her translate if it's a language issue? Because there's some issues. Actually some interesting issues, but she's unless she's too shy.
So then, in the healthcare space, so you know how we talked with the other entrepreneurs who are not in the healthcare space, we talk about proof. You need orders, you need customers, right? When you're not in healthcare. In healthcare, you need data on your clinical trials. So there's an inflection point in clinical trial 1 typically, right? So first you have animal data. People are like, okay, well, animal data, you know, it's still animal data. Doesn't mean whatever you're doing is going to be the same on humans. But then once you hit clinical trial 1, you get a set of data that looks promising. Can still fail later down the line, but you have inflection point. So for your healthcare company, it's going to depend basically on where you are with your clinical trials. And again, it's sort of the same thing we were saying before. It's about the proof. Prove that it works, right? Prove that it's going to work with the future clients. They're going to buy it. So if it works on the patients on clinical trial 1, it's already de-risked from the animal model, right? So now you're like, okay, you have an inflection point there. And so your valuation will be, higher. So if you're just before, you're not going to have as much leverage. If you're just after the inflection point, you have leverage. So I think it's also about explaining this to the investors, right? You say, well, we're just before the data, right? And we have some insights about the data. It's going to look good, right? So they invest now, and then basically the data immediately gives an ROI to the investor. So proof. It's the key. Nick, anything you want to add there, since you're an expert in biotech healthcare too?
Right. So, I mean, it's a question of, what is your, right, as Alistair said, where you are on the stage of approvals, et cetera. Are you, are you approved by the Chilean equivalent of the FDA? Are you approved in the US? Are you approved in Europe? If, for example, there's a device that the device manufacturer that is did not require FDA approval, but is in a much under, how should I say this? It's for women's health. And so there was a lot of stuff happening in women's health that has not been funded because unfortunately, most of the VCs are guys. So there were tremendous opportunities. Valuation a little lower, but as an investor, I thought it was great because that meant that the returns could be better. Plus, it was not as crowded a field. But so we don't really know what where you are, what the demand is, is it an active area? Is it something that's got a huge demand? Is it a Me Too product? Is it something that, solves a need that's unaddressed? There are a whole bunch of other issues. So, I mean, in that kind of vacuum, it's hard to say what it is. But, if you have approval of the US FDA, then you're more likely to get funding easier to get funding in the US. If you have traction, it's even easier again, so that's, all I can say on very little information.
Well, there's another question that asks, do you recommend to make an ICO to raise funds?
If you can get away with it. Have you seen one lately, Alistair? I haven't seen one in a few years now.
It's been a while. I haven't seen that either yet.
Is it still happening in Chile?
I would not be too creative, with the process, but if it works, it works. Like there's nothing bad in trying that if you think it can work. But we don't see this often, I would say, in Boston.
The next question asks if there are any companies or many companies doing valuations specific for startups in Boston, and also, do you think would help to make match with investors if the valuation is automated through an SaaS?
Is that the business?
The business is a startup valuation
Right.
platform.
There you go.
So they're asking if there are more like them.
Yep. So that would be a good business, actually. Would be interested to learning more about this business. So the question was, are there many companies doing valuations specific to startups in Boston? And also, do you think you would have, you think would help to make match with investors if the valuation is automated through a SaaS? So basically, it's so Beatrice, just to understand, this is a startup that does valuation for startups.
Exactly. It's a platform that does valuation.
I think you have you have 90 VCs to comments. So New England Venture Capital Association, I think, is your best bet, actually. They do new unpitch events where you can actually meet VCs and pitch it to the VCs, see what they say, you know, and then it depends where it is. Is it seed or round A plus? Where are you operating? You're operating more in what stage are you operating in?
I think they're a seed. Ignacio, ¿en qué etapa están de levantamiento de capital?
Hi, sorry, my camera is not working right now. No, we're not yet we are in angel investment right now.
Okay. So, you know, I think that's interesting. You know, if there's a solution to reduce the complexity of doing evaluation at that stage, I think it's a great solution.
Thanks. Yeah, I ask mostly because I mean we know how many companies are in Latin America and Europe doing valuation through software as a service, but we have not much information about the United States because it's a little bit far still for us. But
I would say so on the seed stage, as I said, you know, Nick, feel free to chime in, but I think on the seed stage, it's a magic recipe, right? Then when it comes to round A plus, I would say there's a lot of different benchmarks and things the VC use but we operate more in the seed stage. So it's really going to depend on what we put in the model, if you will. And mostly revenue is going to be the driver of or proofs are going to be the driver of any higher valuation.
Yes, we are aiming to the seed stage to help them because when you get higher, you can buy more expensive valuation by McKinsey or other consulting companies.
Would love to learn more. That sounds very, very cool.
Yeah, thank you. We'll send you an email. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions?
There's another one about valuation and
Yeah,
intellectual
it's
property.
asking if in the valuation, does the IP add a lot to its value, or is it kept as a secret?
That would be trade secrets. Trade secret.
Yeah, trade secrets, or is it kept as, or is the technology kept as trade secret?
So it's gonna, again, this one is a very good question, which is gonna depend, right? So a good robust IP with no flaws, you know, because that's also one thing. You can have IP, but then it's a minefield, and so you know it's gonna be tough to defend it. But definitely investors, and particularly in the events of Nick Anderson and the Keiretsu Forum, we hear a lot that question, you know, what about IP, right? But then it's going to depend on the product. If you're in a software, IP might be less important. It's speed. But your best IP, again, is speed. You know, being first is better than being perfect and having everything you can defend. I would say have an IP attorney, review your model and make sure it's not expensive typically, or too expensive when you can pay for it. But, you know, focus on speed, not too much on this. You know, of course, the IP lawyer would say differently. You know, he would say, no, you have to really think about your IP. But, you know, the problem is a lot of people, they bulletproof a lot of things. The product isn't even finished. So you're filing an IP with things that are going to be changing anyway, and you don't understand completely the business model. So, you know, right balance, I would say, between this, which will depend on your business, you know, and your product, and if it's software or not software, and if you have cash or no cash. You're welcome.
Alistair, I know that you doesn't want to sell anything, but I would love if you can explain, even in a short way, what you do in Nuovo.
Okay, great. So basically I have one of the slides that I skipped. If you want, I can quickly share the screen there. Okay, I'm still on the screen, right? You guys still see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's just go back to the one slide, because we have a model, so it's quite engineered, so that's gonna help. Okay, here. So here, can you see, everyone see the slide?
Yes.
Yes.
So basically we have a program that we configure. So it's a bit what you guys are doing. It's also virtual. There's a curriculum where we cover specific elements that's gonna identify key gaps in your business. So we're about 14 sessions that are geared to unlocking or finding the problems. We only look at problems. And it's not just training, it's really a workshop where we help you find the problems. And after every workshop, you guys meet with us and we ask you, from the workshop we did, what problems did you find? And that lasts for 3 months. So we can either do these programs in cohorts, in groups, which is cheaper for an entrepreneur, which makes it accessible to early stage companies. But then we also have some programs that are configured for solo, but more advanced companies, typically round A. And these guys, we focus typically on business development. And as we do this, we figure out that they have problems because customers don't respond the way they are hoping to. And then we also help them on the marketing and the sales and so on. So then the yellow piece is Innovo programs. Then we've put together Innovo Capital Network. So it's the investors are united together to help these companies that are participating in the yellow program. So instead of having, entrepreneurs and then go into the wild to try to find the investors, we have a captive audience, if you will, of investors that believe in our mission and vision. Because we have a mission and a vision too. The idea is to, entrepreneurs are changing the world, are creating jobs, and are, equalizing the world and the economies and creating prosperity. So we have a whole, set of, views and values that we want to, pursue with entrepreneurship. So we only bring investors that share these values with us, right? Remember the slides, the why, right? We have a strong why because we know it unites people. And then, so in there, if you need venture capital, once you've went through our program, we typically don't present anyone to our investors if you didn't go through the program, because the whole point of the program is to make sure you fit in the boxes so we don't waste time. So venture capital, we have government funding with us. So we will send you to the government funding that we know about. We have small business angels, demo days. That's demo days. So we bring the business angels to you. You pitch with the best pitch possible that we've helped you prepared. And then you have the large business angel demos. So these guys are the busy people, right? They work in C-level, level. They're in the board of meetings. They have 10,000 employees. So we meet them on a Sunday or Saturday, right? And typically it's after we've screened after they went through, 10, 20 small business angels. And then we cut a deal. The deal can be either pure investment, we do nothing, but some investment, like one company called AI Lean, basically the investors want us involved. They say the team is great, but when the team operates with Innovo, there's basically a good synergy, good match, good complementarity, and so on. So we create a deal where we have also equity, sweat equity, and then we're incentivized to make the equity work, to make the capital return. So, and we work with the team. So we basically, sort of build a model that exists in large VCs, but for the early stage. And then finally, and that's the name of the game, is to exit it to a large VC. And that's how everyone makes money. And then the goal is growth pathways. So, X multiple, revenue. And that's why we're really focused on the most important thing, which is making you make revenue, because that's the main trigger to this. So that's it's a system. We've put a system in place and we work with cities. So where it's quite cool is we work with a lot of cities, different cities around the world, where we create these synergies. And if you remember the map of Marco Polo, we believe really in identifying those sweet spots where your technology or your product is missing. and going and enabling barter trading, right? So working with cities will facilitate for one of our entrepreneurs to maybe go to Strasbourg and sell it to 4 hospitals there. And then with Boston, now you get 2 hospitals. Now we have another city over there that's going to say, well, we'll implement that startup for you in exchange. And now it becomes barter trading. Let's say we do it with Chile. You know, you would say, well, Alistair, can you help us implement this product, augmented reality, virtual reality in Strasbourg? Sure. Then the city in Strasbourg will say, well, what do we get in return? And they'll say, well, if we implement your company in Strasbourg, can you implement this company in Chile, in Santiago? And then so the cities are sort of the barter traders. And then for us, it helps us because now all of a sudden we have a market access strategy that's hyper competitive and easy and lean and sort of going back to the fundamentals of back in the days where we just, you know, would basically exchange things that we needed. So we sort of, you know, that's the sort of model and vision we have, you know, and it's working pretty well. We've been doing this for 2 years, and we'd love to work with Chile and Santiago, actually, because I think you guys have great companies, and it's a great country in Latin America, very known for, you know, being strong in startup and technology.
Thank you so much, Alistair. Thank you for all our teams that have been here. This has been a great presentation, and I'm sure all of our teams found great value in it. So with this, we will conclude our session for the day. Again, thank you for everybody who participated. As always, the webinar series will be up afterwards, and we will send out that link. So goodbye, everyone. Adiós, muy buenas tardes, muy buenas noches.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick, also, Alistair and Nick.
Really, yes, I'm so sorry, Nick.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you to
You're
everybody.
quite welcome.
Good luck, everybody. Yeah, bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.